In an ideal world, we'd all love a bike for every occasion, but the sad reality is that it's a luxury few people can afford. And that's where Ducati's Multistrada starts to make sense. It's touted as a bike for touring, cruising and sports riding. So let's see if it can live up to all three. The Multistrada has been a hit for several years in Australia, appealing to riders who cover a variety of surfaces and don't mind setting off on long-distance getaways. That formula remains front and centre for 2015, the main updates being some styling and dynamic tweaks and the addition of Ducati's new Desmodromic variable timing function to the Multistrada's bustling 1198cc V-twin engine. The 1200 range starts at $23,990 plus on-road costs for the model we're riding. Standard fitments include cruise control, a manually adjustable windscreen, multiple power outputs for recharging, and safety aids including ABS, stability control and wheelie control. So I've just come back from a couple of hours riding this thing, and I guess the biggest thing to take away from it is that it is a tourer first and foremost. And I say that because the way the engine's set up, the suspension, the general ergonomics, it's very much catered towards comfort on long trips. I've done a bit of highway touring as well as some back road stuff, and in all cases this thing really thrives when you're spending long time in the saddle. The general setup of the suspension is great. It's very plush. It isolates you from bumps in the road. It can be a little bit jarry if you hit big potholes and things like that, but generally it does a really good job of suppressing small bumps in the road. At the heart of the Multistrada is an 8-valve V-twin engine that is also found on the 1198 Superbike. In this guise, it has been detuned to make a respectable 117 kilowatts and 136 newton meters, enough to launch the Multistrada from 0 to 100 in about 3.5 seconds. Now at 1200 cc's, those outputs are fairly respectable and it feels very much that powerful on the road. You've got a nice linear torque curve and power curve. It picks up really well off the line, and thanks to the latest in rider aids such as the traction control, ABS, wheelie control and all the rest, it really hits its straps from right down low on the rev count and revs all the way just cleanly right through to its circa 10,000 RPM cutout. The engine boasts Ducati's new Desmodromic variable timing function. Essentially, adjustable camshafts operated by oil pressure facilitate separate valve timing for both high rev and low rev running. The upshot being that the engine performs more smoothly and efficiently across the rev spectrum. One thing I did notice with the new DVT technology is that it is prone to quite a lot of vibration through the seat and the foot pegs, right on sort of 6,000 or 7,000 RPM. So if you're doing some back road touring and you really want to keep the revs up to it, then that was one small bugbear. And as I said, thanks to those rider aids, that they really come in handy and give you full assurance that this thing's going to put its power down cleanly. As for the rest of the package, well, the brakes work really well. ABS technology, the front lever in particular, just comes on really, really strong and offers plenty of bite when you want it to. Tipping the scales at about 220 kilograms, the Multistrada is surprisingly agile on a twisty section of road. Its Pirelli dual-purpose tyres offer loads of grip, while the bike turns in sharply and quickly inspires confidence. In terms of handling, well, it's not quite sports bike, but for a touring or cruiser brief, this thing does pretty well. It's very engaging through the corners. It turns in confidently. It holds itself well through corners. It's very poised and composed at all times, and even mid-corner bumps don't upset it overly. I guess you do gain confidence on it fairly quickly, which is pretty important. In terms of the rest of the ride experience, well, you've got some really nice creature comforts there to kind of make the whole ride experience more pleasant. Things like the heated grips, the cruise control. Overall vision's really good. You've got quite big mirrors there either side of you, and obviously a nice clean outlook in front of you. The screen doesn't actually pose any dramas in terms of forward vision. You sort of forget it's there after a while. All the controls are really well laid out. One thing with this bike compared to the 1200S, which gets the full colour screen, this just gets a fairly basic sort of monopixel layout. It displays all the functions really well. All your important data is there to look at. It's easy to read. Generally, it's not as aesthetically pleasing as the 1200S, but even so, a pretty good package all around. The Multistrada is an immensely important bike for Ducati, and one which lives up to its brief as a multi-purpose machine. The 2015 update sharpened Ducati's offering against the latest competitors from KTM and BMW. In summary, the 1200 is the sort of bike that won't really exclude you from different riding groups, and is ably up to long days in the saddle.